rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Oh, hello, everybody. Oh, my goodness. What a mess. Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. Today is Armed Forces Day. That's right, Armed Forces Day. So that is why we have all of the armed services back here in the background. Most people aren't necessarily aware of Armed Services or Armed Forces Day because of the fact that most people don't pay attention to it. But it is a day to celebrate the people who are in our active services. And so, yeah, there you go. That's what it's for. Interesting. My feed for Rumble is not coming up. That's kind of odd. Here, I'm going to do something really quick. Let me just say hello to everybody in the chat so that we can get things. Let's go like this, and let's make sure that we get all 1, 2, 3, and 4. There we go. And yes, there's 6. There are 6 images back here. Here, in fact, let me go ahead, and I'm just going to shut my camera off, and you guys can bask in the glory of the 6 armed forces stuff. So there you go. So Ms. T, is there a problem with my audio? Is that what's going on here? Is there a problem with my audio? Anyway, hats off to oh, there it goes. Okay. So hats off to all of them. Thank you, Becky. Hats off to all of them. Yes, Space Force. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Well, I can't do a very good impression of our okay. All right. So it looks like we've got some good thumbs up. Audios are good. All right. Great. Fantastic. Okay. So let's go ahead and get things. And that's pretty much about it for the Armed Forces Day. Just do yourself a favor if you have anybody who is currently serving, currently serving in the service. Just make sure you tell them thank you for your service. Make sure that you tell them that you appreciate what they are doing and so on and so forth, because this is the day. Just like Veterans Day is for veterans, Memorial Day is for those lives lost. Armed Forces Day is for those who are currently serving, and that's how that is broken down. Now, my buddy Steven Stiles, you've heard him before on the hockey episode that I did quite some time ago, but you heard him in his mindset, in his thought process. He believes that those 3 that I just named, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and Armed Forces Day, plus Flag Day and a couple of others, all should be the only national holidays. All those other holidays that they add in, all those other, things in terms of, pretty much basically the only holidays that should be available are anything dealing with the United States and recognizing service members, not only in the military, but also police and fire and those kinds of things, because those folks, they are providing and living a life in service to the country and to the people of this country. And so that's his belief, but I don't want to put a bunch of words in his mouth with regards to that. But yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. All right, let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Tonight, who is up tonight? Oh, I can't forget who's up tonight. If I forgot who was up tonight, I'd be in trouble. She is in my mind anyway, the most fabulous. She is, in my mind anyway, the most beautiful. She is, in my mind anyway, the how you doing member of my world sphere, whatever. Tonight for the Pledge of Allegiance, we have Mrs. Whiskey up on deck. So please, if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one, and join along with the wonderful, fabulous, how you doing, Mrs. Whiskey, in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, we thank you, Mrs. Whiskey, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting the pledge in your style, whether that's an audio file or a video file, whatever kind of file. Take that file, attach it to an email address, send it to me. Fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. All right. Let's go ahead and get our first sponsor kicked off out here. Tonight, of course, is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government, as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, IOTC.AmericanPerspective.online, to get signed up. To get signed up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is IOTC.AmericanPerspective.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's IOTC.AmericanPerspective.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to Constitution.AmericanPerspective.online. Take a look at this. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. And no cheap glue here, folks. This is stitched binding all the way through the leather. It's got a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects, such that if there is a problem with this, you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will help you to study for your civics badge in Scouts. Go to Constitution.AmericanPerspective.online to get yours today. And also, don't forget to check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's offerings. And I appreciate them for allowing me to be a brand affiliate. All right. Tonight, I am drinking the Four Roses Single Barrel. There it is. Right there. And that is actually in the American Perspective. This is a fantastic gift by my Whiskey Warrior P1s. The American Perspective logo whiskey glass with the requisite stones, because as 3 Chevy says, it takes stones to drink with whiskey. First sip. All right. Well, I see we're a little light in some of the regular chatters that are running around over on Rumble, but that's okay. That's all right. I know there was some comments they were saying that they weren't going to be able to make it. So that's okay. We're fine. We'll just move on. All right. So Mrs. Whiskey, it's kind of apropos that she did the Pledge of Allegiance, because Mrs. Whiskey pointed me toward this wonderful, fantastic, and just incredible individual who, while he's not old enough to become president yet, all right, he just right now, he sounds like he is just an absolute fantastic pick for some time in the future. Now, I can't tell you because I'm really not sure of his age, so I can't tell you how far in the future it actually is, but I can tell you that this guy, if this guy is for real, he is going to be absolutely fantastic. We've got I've got a couple clips here of some conversations that he's been having with some, some news media and so on and so forth. He's talking to these folks, but let's go ahead and take a listen to this wonderful and fantastic individual who can basically make a run for the presidency. I actually think he's going to do just great, but let's go ahead and take a listen to him right now.
We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Oh, if you think that the voice sounds familiar, no, I'm not talking about President Donald John Trump. But there is a young person, and I do mean young. For those on the audio portion of the program, you got to head over to rumble.com and take a look at the video when you get the chance. But this individual, this is literally a baby. Here. He's not done yet, though, folks. He's got something else to say. Take a listen.
So now they're crying over toys made in China. They say tariffs will ruin Christmas. I say good. Maybe it's time your kids learn where things come from. Not everything shows up in a box with a smile. We gave China our factories. They gave us cheap junk. Now we take it back. And if a few kids miss out on plastic garbage this year, blame the deals you voted for.
All right. Well, he's not done yet, folks. There's one more that he wants to talk to you about, or talk to a bunch of people about. Check this out. He is well-versed and versatile in everything.
They say I took a bribe. Wrong. I don't need bribes. I'm richer than the people making up these stories. I built an empire before politics, and I'll keep winning after. This is what they do. Lose an election, then throw dirt. But let me ask, if I really took $400 million, wouldn't I be on a beach right now? Think about it. And believe me.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Mom went ahead and mom, meaning Mrs. Whiskey. She went ahead and sent those to me. There's several variations. Just for those of you that don't know, the first two came off of Instagram. If you do a quick search for baby Trump speech AI, and that usually comes up. I don't know who the creator is, because that last one was a TikTok video. But you can just search up baby Trump speeches or baby Trump AI, and yeah, they've got quite a few, with those. So, and that stuff it looks like, I gotta tell you, AI is kind of scary. You want to talk about videos and stuff like that? AI is really scary, for a lot of this stuff, but anyway, so yeah, go and check out baby Trump. If you just put out baby Trump, there's several of them there. I just picked 3 of them that I really appreciated. Oh, all right. Let's go ahead and get into tonight's first segment. I had to start us off with a bit of a laugh, so let's go ahead and get into the first segment, which of course is On This Day in American History. And of course, for On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb, chock full. That's a thick book. Chock full of all kinds of information about our wonderful country that we call home. And of course, tonight is with regards to Armed Forces Day. We have it here. So let's go ahead and take a listen. On May 17th, 1952, the New York Times ran an article reminding readers of Armed Forces Day, observed that year while American troops were actually fighting in Korea. Quote, "This is the day on which we have the welcome opportunity to pay special tribute to the men and women who are in the service of their country all over the world," the Times noted. Armed Forces Day won't be a matter of parades and receptions for a good many of them. They will all be in the line of duty, and some of them may give their lives in that duty. Armed Forces Day is observed on the third Saturday in May. It is a day to salute soldiers in all branches of the military and remember that we would have no peace, security, or freedom, no United States, without them. Okay? While Memorial Day honors America's war dead and Veterans Day honors those who have served in times past, Armed Forces Day recognizes those presently serving. The nation has observed this patriotic holiday since 1950. The military often sponsors parades, air shows, and tours of ships, planes, and bases on Armed Forces Day. It is our most earnest hope that those who are in positions of peril, that those who have made exceptional sacrifices, yes, and those who are afflicted with plain drudgery and boredom may somehow know that we hold them in exceptional esteem, the Times noted. Perhaps if we are a little more conscious of our debt of honored affection, they may be a little more aware of how much we think of them. And that is today's On This Day in American History. And yes, 3 Chevy pointed out that it looks like there's a hole in it. That's the byproduct of a kind of an aqua blue colored Post-it note that I used to mark the bookmark and the green screen technology that's being used. So there you go. Anyway, that is tonight's On This Day in American History. And yes, we do need to thank all of those who are currently serving in the services, because they have done what many veterans have done, but they didn't have their own day until Armed Forces Day. They are holding on to a check that says payable to the United States government and her people with an amount that says up to and including my life. And they haven't, it hasn't been cashed yet, thankfully. Nor has it been torn up yet either. All right. Sorry about that. Excuse me. Oh, that's an opportunity to take another drink. All right. Well, there was something that I was going to do and I just forgot it. Anyway, all right. Well, let's go ahead and move on. We've been having a bunch of wins and some losses and some truth that showed up out of the last 48 hours. By that, I mean, because obviously I didn't transmit last night, which, by the way, the reason why I didn't was it was a work thing. It was a work thing. I had to drive 4 to 5 hours one way So I did it round trip. So that would have been roughly 8 hours worth of driving. And then some time spent doing the job. So obviously, a long day for me last night, which it's a good thing that I didn't try to transmit because, I didn't get home until about 8 p.m. Last night. So I wouldn't have been able, it would have been late. Oh, speaking of late, if you are interested, and I'm only throwing this out there because this is just a trial, kind of a trial run. Okay. But, and I'm saying it's a trial run because it's not in its regular time slot yet. I have to get a little more used to the methodology and the way things are going. But if you are interested, tonight at midnight Central Time, which will be 1 a.m. on the East Coast, unfortunately, the debut episode, pilot episode of a show known as Bourbon and Backroads, hosted by yours truly, is going to air on TGRN's Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. So if you want to listen for 2 hours to some good music that I put together and curated, yeah, you might want to go and check it out. Dallas Moore's Outlaw Radio, of course, you can go to tgrn.net and listen right there through your web browser, or you can download the app. Shows up, the links show up right there. But the name of the show is Bourbon and Backroads. And it is, this one is a pilot, but believe me, more good things to come. And eventually it'll move into its final time slot or into its proper time slot. But again, I got to get used to the format and how to get things sounding a little better than what they did last night, but sounding a little better than what they will tonight. But anyway, if you want to check that out, you can check that out tonight, and it'll probably stay in that time slot, midnight till 2 Central Time, until I get my act together and my program manager actually says, yay, and puts me into the regular time slot. But Bourbon and Backroads, yep, it'll be coming. There's no information on the website about it just yet, just because it's again, kind of a new thing, but we got to work out some of the kinks. So anyway, but you can listen to the pilot if you're interested for it. So there you go. All right. Let's get into it. Let's get into the ups and downs. First of all, we'll start with a down, because I kind of started you off with a up with Baby Trump, but here we're going to get you a down. Unfortunately, SCOTUS has decided to uphold one of the, I want to call them like a temporary restraining order, but that's not what it is, an injunction. There we go. An injunction. SCOTUS has sided with illegal alien criminals, the ones that are from Venezuela, in the Alien Enemies Act case. So the Supreme Court listened yesterday, or issued an order yesterday that basically said, yeah, we're going to hold up the fact that, yeah, we don't want anybody deported right away under this thing. It was a 7-2 decision. You can guess who the two were. I mean, if you're thinking Thomas and Alito, yep, those two dissented, of course. But anyway, it was a 7-2 decision. The Supreme Court approved the request from the Venezuelan nationals for an injunction to prevent their removal from the United States. However, that's all that they did. See, the ACLU actually requested as a part of that they skip the lower court processes, meaning the whole percolation across, the lower court system to percolate up through to the Supreme Court of the United States. The ACLU asked to skip that process. And the Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to address the constitutionality question or whatever of all of this just yet. We want it to percolate through the lower courts. So the only thing that we're going to grant you is the fact that those people can't be deported for the moment. But once it goes through the process, and in particular in this this particular case, it'll be, I believe it's the Fifth Circuit Court. Yeah, it's the Fifth Circuit Court. They basically said, hey, we think that them not having enough time to respond to, basically respond to the request for deportation. They were saying, yeah, the Trump administration didn't really give these people enough time to basically get their legal affairs in order, or at least that's what 7 out of the 9 justices were saying. The other 2, which of course are the 2 staunch conservative, constitutionalist judges, said, yeah, it's not our business. But anyway, so the order basically allowed for the operation of keeping those people in until this case gets percolated. And they essentially said the reason why is they said, well, it's not optimal for this court, far removed from the circumstances on the ground, to determine the first instance the precise process necessary to satisfy the Constitution in this case. We remand the case to the Fifth Circuit Court for that purpose. So they're basically saying, hey, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals needs to go first. So, yeah. Anyway, so that was, I mean, you can kind of look at this as not necessarily a win, not necessarily a loss, because they got part of it, but not all of it. So that being said, yeah, it's it's not exactly not exactly good for Trump, but it's not exactly bad for Trump. It just means that the Venezuelans are sitting for a little bit longer. And Alito, of course, in his dissent, he pushed back against the majority, accusing the court of exceeding its proper authority. Gee, this seems like that happens quite a bit. They courts exceed their proper authority. He says, from the court's order, it's not entirely clear whether the court has silently decided issues that go beyond the question of interim relief. He says, I certainly hope it has not. But if it has done so, today's order is doubly extraordinary. So, yeah, there is some back and forth and some issues within the court system. Yeah, this is kind of, again, this is one of those things I've mentioned. There's two constitutionalist judges. There's 3 absolute leftist liberal morons. And there's, that makes 5. And so there's 4 kind of middle of the road, go along to get along kind of folks that are right in the middle, that can't pull their heads out of their asses and actually make a decision. So anyway, I hope whoever chooses the next group, and I'm hoping it's either Trump and or Vance, the next group of people, the chance to even up that 2 to 3 separation and kind of get it a little bit closer to more of I don't know, let's go like a 5-4. Let's get that going. Anyway. Ooh. Well, that started to go down the wrong pipe. That's not good. All right. Well, while that story is kind of a mix between a win and a loss, this one definitely is also in that same case between a win and a loss. So Trump's big, beautiful bill got, voted against in committee. So the House Budget Committee on Friday voted. Now, for those of you that don't understand how this works, a bill gets put up. It goes through the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee kind of decides whether or not, hey, should we bring this to the general membership? And if it has merits, then they take that Rules Committee. The Rules Committee says, okay, well, here's the rules about it. Here's some of the things that, we can and can't do. And they push the bill along and they put it to a committee within the House that it applies to. For an example, if in this particular case, they have the House Budget Committee. Well, the House Budget Committee will sit there and pore over the bill and kind of argue back and forth, maybe changing things, maybe not, that kind of stuff. And they kind of go back and forth about it, and they talk about it and argue about it and that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden they'll put it to a vote. And it'll be a vote in the committee as to whether or not to take that order and move, or take that bill and push it out of committee and allow it to go to the floor. Now, if you send it to the floor, then it's up for a vote by the General Assembly at large. The problem here is that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, it looks like, Republicans that are part of the House Budget Committee who voted against passing it out of committee. So Friday they voted and it came up, I think it's 21-16, I believe is the number. And a fifth House Republican switched it over. But that in particular was a procedural maneuver, which basically allows the legislation to come back. They have so many freaking crazy rules in the House and the Senate and everything else in terms of how they do these things. But basically what ended up happening is Chip Roy of Texas, John Brecheen of Oklahoma, Andrew Clyde of Georgia, and Ralph Norman of South Carolina, they all voted against it. And then the Representative Lloyd Smucker of Pennsylvania switched his vote from yes to no. But the point is that he did it so that it allows him in particular to bring the legislation up again. And so anyway, they are supposedly, the panel, the House Budget Committee is supposedly going to reconvene on Sunday night. That's tomorrow night for those of you that don't know, 10 p.m. for another vote. Now the committee had met to mark up and debate the bill, which is, of course, a massive piece of legislation, because, again, it's the one big, beautiful bill. And it's the product of 11 different House committees' individual efforts to craft that policy, meaning Trump's policy, under each of their jurisdictions. The result is basically this huge, wide-ranging bill, all right, that advances Trump's priorities on things like the border, immigration, taxes, energy, and defense, as well as raising the debt limit because, God forbid you don't live within your means. Government can't seem to do that. I don't care what party it is. They just can't seem to do that. They always say, oh, we need more money. Yeah. Anyway. So there's this huge bill. They put it all together. They did all of this. Obviously, there was all kinds of challenges and issues, and they went back and forth, and they talked about it, and so on and so forth. Well, there's a couple of things, a couple of reasons in particular as to why this big, beautiful bill kind of stalled where it is. Okay. And the first reason, which is kind of the priority reason or the primary reason, had to deal with the fact that they're trying to push the bill through in a process that is called reconciliation. And there are very strict and specific rules with regards to this process. Now, reconciliation basically takes, and this usually happens whenever you trade presidents, meaning you trade a Democrat president for a Republican or vice versa. And essentially what's going on here is that they are basically trying to take the budget that lasts, because the budget gets passed for, I think it's like every 4 years in many cases. And so what ends up happening here is this budget has to go back through the ringer. And especially in the case of when you switch presidents, switch presidential parties, the president will go and set out the new agenda, and then Congress has to kind of attempt to figure out what it is that they need to do within the current budget in an attempt to enact the legislation that is needed to support the president's agenda. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if I necessarily would follow along those lines and think, you know what, actually, if you read the Constitution, you understand the Constitution, Congress really should be the one that should be setting what laws they're going to put out. But for some reason, throughout our history, the presidency kind of took over, and people look at the president, and the president basically tells Congress, hey, this is what I want to get done. This is what I want to do. You guys need to figure out how to allow me to not only do it, but also to allow me to pay for it. And I'm not exactly sure where within history that flipped, but there's a reason why Congress was written under Article 1. Article 1 was essentially, in the Constitution, was essentially saying that Congress makes the laws. And then the president is supposed to enact those laws and follow through with them and enforce them. Realistically, I believe the founders were looking at Congress and making Congress, maybe not exactly, but kind of in the line set of, hey, Congress, which is made up of the people, elected representatives of the people, they kind of have a higher standing, let's say, than the presidency, even though they are equal branches. They just do different functions. And so in reality, the Congress should be the one that should be putting together the budget. The Congress should be the one that should be figuring everything out. And the president is supposed to sit there and just say, hey, Congress, what am I supposed to enforce here? But somehow that has switched around, and we've gotten it to where the president actually sort of leads the pack when it comes to the budget and comes to things like laws and what they want to do in terms of an agenda and so on and so forth. I don't know why that happened. And it's okay. I mean, I don't care one way or the other in terms of how that came about. I mean, I think in a way it's sort of like, okay, the president kind of says, hey, I was elected by the people to do X, Y, and Z, so I need your help to, get X, Y, and Z completed. And I think that kind of interaction sort of changed the dynamic within the federal government. I mean, we all know that, several presidents throughout history have all been like, no. The Congress does hardly anything. The bureaucracy runs it. That was kind of Woodrow Wilson's thought in terms of how government should be run, that the presidency and the bureaucracy actually ran government. So I'm a little, I think things are a little backwards, but it is what it is, and it is what we can do. But anyway, let me get back to this. So reconciliation is actually governed by very stringent rules. One of those is called the Byrd Rule. That's BYRD. Now the Byrd Rule, the Byrd Rule requires the bill's provisions to have some sort of a connection to the actual budget. So under a reconciliation bill, you can't just magically throw in something, for an example, that has no tangential tie to something within the current budget. You couldn't just automatically create brand new legislation under a reconciliation bill. And that makes sense. I mean, seriously, you really don't want to necessarily introduce new legislation when all you're doing is trying to tighten up the budget numbers and maybe shift or reallocate some of those funds to go to whoever the current president's agenda might actually be. And so that's one of the biggest problems that we have. Reconciliation bills also are not supposed to increase the federal deficit after 10 years. So what this means is that permanent spending increases must be offset by cuts, which is, again, part of the problem because government never cuts money. They just never do. Now, here's part of the reasons. These are 4 big factors as to why the big, beautiful bill has actually stalled within the committee. The first one is the state and local tax deduction. And what's happening here is you have some blue state Republicans, namely Republicans that are in, say, New York and California, New Jersey also. Those folks, they want to allow the federal taxes to be able to be reduced based on the amount of state and local taxes any given individual is actually paying. Now, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 capped SALT deductions from federal taxes to a maximum of $10,000 per household. And some Republicans are thinking this is far too low. Well, the reason why they think it's far too low is because these stupid-ass blue states like New Jersey, California, New York are taxing the crap out of their people. And now what's happening is they can't take the federal tax deduction, and so they are losing, essentially, constituents are getting pissed at them because they are being taxed more now after the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Even though the federal taxes got reduced, they're still being taxed more because now they can't take a deduction based on what their state and local taxes are doing. And so this is a bit of a problem. And so these folks they're holding out to try and push that cap up past $30,000 because the initial proposal and the way that it is right now is they're suggesting to raise it from $10,000 to $30,000, but even that isn't enough for several of these blue state Republicans. They want to raise the cap meaning the amount that can be deducted to a higher number. Second thing is there's plenty of disagreements about what's going on with Medicaid. Okay. And by the way, Medicaid is both federally funded but state administered as a health insurance program for low-income Americans. Now, I've maintained on this program, and I'll still maintain it until somebody can pull up out of Article 1, Section 8, the line that says that Congress is supposed to be making laws about health care within this country. That ain't happening. But anyway, they've been going back and forth, and the CBO itself, okay, the CBO, which is the Congressional Budget Office, estimated that the Medicaid-related provisions would save, meaning the cuts that are being proposed, the changes in Medicaid that are being proposed, would save $625 billion over the course of 10 years. And also added that the bill would also lead to about 7.6 million people becoming ineligible for the program, meaning that there will be 7.6 million people that lose the opportunity to have the Medicaid as their benefits. Well, conservative Republicans are seeking to do further adjustments to Medicaid because remember, under that one rule, that part of the Byrd rule, they have to, in order to be able to fund things, they have to cut elsewhere within the 10-year period. So anyway, some moderate Republicans are opposing large Medicaid cuts amid fears of an electoral backlash in 2026. They are actually taking the stance that, hey, if we do these Medicaid cuts, this is going to cut our throats in 2026, and you're going to end up right back in the stance of the House and possibly even the Senate's flipping to the Democrats, which if that happens, I guarantee you, we will have an impeachment trial, an impeachment process and probably a trial that might result in the removal of Donald Trump during the years of 2027 to 2028. Anyway, another piece that's being argued over is the IRA tax credits. And Republicans have been arguing to see, this is one of the problems with Republicans. They still argue. They're still they're part of the same party, but there's different factions within the party. They don't do the lockstep Borg mind, hive mind mentality of the Democrats when it comes to certain things. They still, if I could even say this, is the Republicans actually function like a representative actually should. They back up the people of their district and what they want done versus the hive mind Borg-like mentality of the Democrats, where it's like, hey, we'll argue, we'll do infighting within our own party until somebody from the outside attacks us. Then we all circle the wagons, we become like a pack of wild dogs, and we're going to take out the intruder first. Anyway, the Republicans have been differing over the timeline for eliminating the idea of the energy-related subsidies from the Biden era. Sorry, I said the IRA tax credits, IRA, which is Inflation Reduction Act. They want to get rid of some of these energy-related subsidies, but they're arguing over how quickly and the timeline, how fast the timelines of those things get put into place. Now, some of them are saying, hey, we want to see these programs end immediately. There's no length of time or anything else. Now, the current bill phases out the electricity production and generation credits after 2028. Certain production credits for wind energy would be eliminated starting in 2027, while some others would end it at later dates. Many credits would be repealed after 2025. The other thing that is causing a big headache for the big, beautiful bill is the cost. Some Republicans take issue with the cost of the bill because, again, remember, they're trying to lift the debt ceiling. And so they're a little concerned, some Republicans are a little concerned about the cost of this and what it's going to do in the future deficit. So they are having a bit of a problem with that. And the exact estimates actually vary. So the CBO estimates that it would add a $5.15 trillion to the deficit between 2025 and 2034. Other sources have generated higher estimates than that, which makes many of people wondering, what is going to happen with that money. So the CBO is estimating that it's going to add 5.15 trillion as a option or a representative of another source. The Committee for Responsible Federal Budget says that this bill would cost up to 6.9 trillion. Folks, we're already 36 plus trillion in the hole anyway. Just imagine adding close to 7 trillion on top of that. Okay. Now keep in mind, none of this, and Ms. T is pointing this out over on Rumble. She's saying like Doge was for nothing. Doge wasn't for nothing. However, what we're talking about here, Doge so far has only found a small drop in the bucket in comparison to what the rest of this stuff is for. The numbers are in the millions and billions for Doge, and yet we're talking about a budget that's going to be in the trillions. And so this is part of the problem. Again, is that while Doge is doing great work, it's just not keeping up with what the Republicans are attempting to try and pass within the House for a budget reconciliation bill. So what's going to happen now? Well, after yesterday's vote, it's initially unclear as to what's going to happen and when. The Republicans are trying to maintain a fast timeline to get it taken care of. Okay. But yeah, they're working to try and get things done. And of course, like I said, The Budget Committee chair, in this particular case, Jody Arrington, told members to go home for the weekend, but then changed their mind and said, hey, a few hours later, that the committee said that they would reconvene at 10 p.m. on May 18th, which is tomorrow and is a Sunday. So, yeah. The House Freedom Caucus, which includes the 4 or 5 that actually voted against it, they wrote that the members will continue to work through the weekend on negotiations. So, yeah. Anyway, there's already signals of opposition in the Senate. They'll, of course, be taking a look at the package after the House passes it, because remember how this works. The one house passes the bill, the other house can either line item change it or approve the bill as is. If they line item change it, then it has to go back to the other house or the other chamber in order to reconcile the differences. Same thing goes if the Senate creates their own bill and the House creates their bill, and although they're close but not fully connected, then you would have to have a joint resolution kind of true up that would make it so that both bills would actually become one and then get passed by both houses in that particular case. So, yeah, a bit of a conundrum here. I mean, this is really kind of the House Freedom Caucus members seem to be the ones that are sort of standing up and saying, no, we don't want this. We want more cuts. We want more, of what America wants. And yet, again, I'm just going to point this out once again. Everybody seems to think that Trump is like this massive conservative. He's not. He never has been. He's more of a middle of the road kind of individual. Regardless of the good things that he's doing for the country, he is not in any way, shape, or form any kind of staunch conservative. And that's why I always think it's funny how the left seems to paint him in this light that he is a staunch conservative. He is not. He is more of a middle of the road kind of politician, and has never really claimed to be anything but, to be honest with you. So from that standpoint, it doesn't really surprise me any that he wants to do things like raise the debt ceiling and do other kinds of things, even though overall the policies are good. Don't get me wrong, the policies are really good. But again, he's not like some kind of staunch, strict constitutionalist conservative. He is more of a middle-of-the-road moderate overall. Anyway, all right. So we have another... This one's in the win column. So we had two that were kind of in the middle, but this one goes into the win column. And this one, a judge has struck down a Biden-era employment discrimination guidance with regards to gender identity. Okay, the judge said that Title 7 does not require employers or courts to blind themselves to the biological differences between men and women. So what this case actually dealt with is a federal judge in Texas on May 15th. He vacated portions of the Biden-era enforcement guidance on workplace harassment that pertained in particular to gender-based discrimination. The decision itself came from a lawsuit filed in August of 2024 by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and the Heritage Foundation, which sought to prevent the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, known as the EEOC, from enforcing guidelines that required employers to use preferred pronouns and eliminate sex-specific workplace dress codes. In the 34-page ruling, the judge, Matthew Kaczmarek, stated that the EEOC actually overstepped its authority when it issued an enforcement guidance to employers that contravenes the plain text of Title VII. Title VII has a guidance that the definition of sex, or Title VII has a guidance that sex is basically biologically binary, and that this new definition that the Biden administration tried to enforce extended beyond that. He basically said that the guidance, which was issued in April of 2024, also contravenes Title VII because it labels employers' failure to accommodate transgender employees' bathroom pronoun and dress preferences as discriminatory harassment. The judge emphasized that Title VII, which protects employees from employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin, does not require employers or courts to blind themselves to the actual biological difference between men and women. I mean, that's just straight common sense. Anyway, Paxton made a statement where he accused the former Biden administration of trying to push radical gender ideology with federal law and force employers to adopt transgender policies. And he said the federal government has no right to force Texans to play along with delusions or ignore biological reality in our workplaces, the Texas Attorney General said in a statement. So, yeah. There you go. That's a win. All right. Let me take a quick break and talk to you about... You see here? Okay. Let me talk to you about 1775 coffee, if it'll come up. There we go. So, here's the thing. You still haven't tried 1775 coffee? Well, now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped, only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold, dark roast that hits harder than a CNN fact check. Well, just about anything hits harder than that because CNN doesn't fact check anything. They propaganda check. But anyway, the smooth medium roast is also there. And don't forget the Vitality Mushroom Blend for clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All of these coffees are single origin, small batch, toxin-free, mold-free. Plus, you're also getting, and this is my favorite, the Gold Spoon Clip. Oh, man, I'm telling you, I got to take a look at that. The Gold Spoon Clip, because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. Then you have a frother as a part of the kit, which is strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's political opinions, or any other family member's political opinions as well. You'll also receive a black tumbler, a black 1775 tumbler, that basically says, I don't take life advice or caffeine from a woke sea witch. There you go. You'll get $175 worth of coffee and gear. All of that is yours for only $99. This is for the ones who have been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com / that's the question mark key, studio. 1775coffee.com / studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Remember, there's only about 1,000 of them in play. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. Start your day with coffee that actually backs what you believe. Go to 1775coffee / or question mark key / studio and grab your starter kit today. All right. So, Harry Enton, telling the truth, even if he doesn't like it. He's got some more information on us, or for us, with regards to Trump's approval rating. Now, the left keeps telling us that the Trump's approval rating, oh my gosh, it's in the toilet, it's going down, it's going down faster than a plane that's been hit by a missile. Yeah, no, actually it isn't. And Harry Enton tells the truth. Let's go ahead and take a listen really quick. Oh, come on. Seriously? All right, give me just a second here. Let me get this back up. Here we go. All right. Here we go.
I think it's time for a bit of a reality check, right? We were going to late April. Donald Trump's approval rating, his net approval seemed to be falling. He seemed to be adios, amigos. People were writing his political obituary. He is rising from the dead. Look at this. Hello, Trump's net approval rating among voters. This is the Reuters Ipsos polling. Look at this. In late April, he was 8 points underwater. But look at where he was in the most recent poll among voters. He's up 7 points to a minus 1 point net favorability rating. This is not the picture I think a lot of people were thinking that we would be painting in late April. I think a lot of people expected his approval rate to keep dropping, but at least according to Reuters Ipsos, it's in fact rising.
Put this then in a larger perspective, Harry.
Yeah, okay. So, you know, this is just one poll, right? But let's take a look across an aggregate of polls. What are we seeing here? And I want to compare both to where Donald Trump is now versus where he was in late April, as well as where he was at this point in term number one. What you see is at minus 6 points, he is a little bit worse off than he is in the Ipsos Reuters polling, but he is considerably better than he was in late April when he was 9 points underwater. And more than that, look at this. He's nearly 10 points better than he was back in May 16th of 2017 in his first term. So what we see is Donald Trump's not just doing better than he was doing in late April of 2025. He's doing considerably better than he was doing at this point in term number one, about 10 points better than he was doing at this point in term number one.
In a vacuum, minus 6 isn't good, but in Trumpian terms, against himself, it's actually a pretty good position for him to be in politically compared to himself.
Exactly.
Yep. Exactly, folks. Exactly. Trump is not dying on the vine as much as what the left would like you to believe. I mean, again, Trump's pulling out some wins here, people. He is. He's pulling out some wins. Well, it's not just Harry Enton who is speaking truth. And this is amazing, I'll be honest with you. Again, Scott Jennings, my favorite guy on CNN. Not like I really watch CNN, but if he was my favorite guy on CNN, if I did watch CNN, which I don't watch CNN, but I do see these clips. And this guy, I'm telling you, Scott Jennings was absolutely flabbergasted. He was absolutely flabbergasted by an admission by a Democrat operative. This is kind of interesting. You're going to have to listen kind of close to hear this, but yeah, he's going to call it out. So let's take a listen really quick here on this.
Are mad. Why the base is mad at some of the leaders in Washington is not because they're not left enough. It's because, Chuck Schumer came out with no strategy, no forewarning, and just said, we're going to fold on the CR. I mean, I think he could have done a better job of explaining what the strategy was and what we're going to do, but there wasn't anything like that. I think Democrats are learning, and I'm going to agree with you, that Democrats cannot only be the party of resistance. We cannot, we resisted so hard between 2017 and 2024. We impeached the guy, we prosecuted him, convicted him of 34 felony counts, and guess what? He still got elected. So I don't know how much harder we can resist now.
Are you admitting that that the case against Trump in New York was part of the organized Democratic Party resistance?
It was a Democratic prosecutor, and at the time, I said I thought it was unwise. I went on Fox News and said
there were Democrats who said this at the time.
There were a lot.
Just to be clear, this wasn't. Just to be clear, everybody who now touts the 34 felonies. Take it from Liz. This was not a real case. This was a plot to upend the presidential campaign, which backfired.
I just think it was a boneheaded move by Alvin Bragg, but it's not his first or last one. So.
This is why we invite Liz, because she's a plain-spoken New York Paul who can really tell it straightforward in a.
Did you hear that? You heard that, right? This coming from a Democrat, potentially a Democrat operative. I don't know how high up she is, but you heard that, right? She basically said and admitted to Scott Jennings that the whole idea of the 34 felony counts, which is a whole bunch of bupkis brought by Alvin Bragg in New York, that was all part of the process. That was all part of the Democrats' supposed resistance to Trump. They did that. Again, it was a political maneuver. people. It had no basis in actual fact. It was a political maneuver, and we all knew it. For those of us who actually don't have the wool pulled over our eyes, we all knew that it was crap. We all knew it was crap. And now she finally admits it. She's finally admitting it. Maybe not for the entire Democrat Party, but she is finally admitting the fact that yes, it was one of many steps to do one thing and one thing only, and that was to prevent Donald Trump from making it back into office. And there he is. He's back in office. He's back in office. Folks, they should take that clip and they should use that as part of the appeal of that 34. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Well, obviously, folks, we had a really big revelation. And I talked to you guys a little bit about it on Thursday with regards to Jake Tapper and the other guy's book. Okay. Jake Tapper and the other guy's book. And yeah, they are sitting here and, you know, they're basically, the wool is being pulled out. Don't look at the man behind the curtain, you know, the whole Wizard of Oz kind of scenario. That's ignore the man behind the curtain, pulling the levers and causing all this stuff. No, they're telling you, they're starting to now come out and they're starting to actually say, yeah, you know what? This stuff is really, really bad. And here it is. Now, I'm just going to give you a reminder. This is Hakeem Jeffries, the purported leader of the Democrat Party in the House. Okay. And he, you know, I think I showed this clip before because it looks familiar to me, but he basically was asked some questions with regards to Joe Biden's mental decline, and, well, he squirms to try and get out from under it. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
From the book, President Biden didn't even recognize George Clooney at a fundraiser the movie star was actually hosting for him. Why should...
Okay, so what I think this guy is Wolf Blitzer, but what Wolf is trying to tell everybody here is that, you know, George Clooney was at a fundraising event and he was talking to Joe Biden, and Joe Biden was just kind of responding, not really responding, you know, like somebody would who knows the other individual. And so George Clooney got upset, and this is one of the things that's in Jake Tapper's book. George Clooney got upset because George Clooney wasn't recognized by the President of the United States as, wait for it, George Clooney. So George Clooney, of course, he's one of those you know, entertainers or whoever that's like, oh my God, you don't know who I am? Oh, holy crap. Wow. You know, you don't know who I am? You're stupid because you don't know who I am. He's so full of himself. But all of that being said, he is a big donor to the Democrat Party, and he is a big supporter of the Democrat Party. And essentially, he felt that if he walked up to the president, because he knew the president should automatically know who he is just because of he would be recognized. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. If I saw George Clooney on the street, I might recognize him. More likely, I would not recognize his ass. Because to be honest with you, even though I know the face, he hasn't been in a good movie that I've watched in the last, I don't know how many years. And so he probably looks and has changed over the course of the years, so I probably wouldn't even know who he is. And honestly, even if I did, I really wouldn't care. But anyway, let me continue with the with the clip with Hakeem.
Should voters trust Democrats when it's clear so many in your party went to great lengths to keep Biden's condition hidden from the public?
I can't tell you what happened between George Clooney and President Biden. I wasn't at that event. What I can say is that we're not looking backward. We're going to continue to look forward, because at this moment, we've got real problems that need to be addressed on behalf of the American people, including the Republican effort to snatch away health care, snatch away food assistance, and hurt veterans.
You interacted with President Biden during those days, those final days he was president of the United States. Did you sense there was a major deterioration?
Well, in the conversations that I was able to have on behalf of the House Democratic Caucus in those final days, we simply expressed our perspective as to what would be best for the party at that given moment in time. President Biden subsequently made the decision that he was going to pass the baton to Vice President Kamala Harris. Of course, that was a decision that we supported strongly.
Just very quickly, I want to ask you, Congressman Jeffries, you say we're not looking back, we're looking forward, but what happened in the past has to do with what's going to happen in the future and whether voters can trust Democrats. As you look back, you were in a leadership position when President Biden decided to run again. Should you have done more at that point to intervene?
It's a great question in terms of whether voters can trust Democrats or not. Every single high-profile special election that has taken place since President Trump was inaugurated, a special election victory in Iowa in January, a special election victory in New York in February, a special election victory in Pennsylvania in March, a special election victory in Wisconsin in the Supreme Court race in April, and yesterday, decisively defeating a Republican incumbent in Omaha in a surprise to many observers. Clearly, voters are trusting Democrats. This year, when they go to the ballot, repeatedly rejecting MAGA extremism.
Except there's only one problem. Your favorability rating is completely in the toilet, my man. Like 25, maybe 30%, if that. Anyway, you'll notice he actually didn't answer the question, which was essentially, hey, couldn't you have done more at that time? Democrats are trying to look forward. And this ties into the same thing that I was telling you about in terms of Joe Biden showing up on The View. The whole reason why Joe Biden was being trotted out of the basement, and by trotting, I mean shuffling, out of the basement and put on that national sycophantic bootlicking program was because of the fact they wanted to stop the information that was coming out on the book and the information that is coming out with regards to a couple of other things. I'm going to get to that in just a second, but first we're going to listen to Jake Sullivan, who was Biden's national security advisor. You think he's there every single day in the freaking White House that he would have noticed that there was a problem. But no, instead, Jake Sullivan is part of the problem. He's part of the problem with the cover-up. So take a listen to this. And Jake Sullivan, by the way, is the former national security advisor of the Biden administration. He is at some sort of a forum put on by none other than leftist Politico. Now, it's kind of funny in my view, funny as in not ha-ha and not really as in strange funny or whatever other kind of funny. But it's interesting to see that now all of a sudden these leftist organizations are starting to ask some actual serious questions with regards to what they were just bootlicking, accepting the Kool-Aid drinking answers coming from the White House about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Take a listen.
But the accusation is not that he could never perform well, is that it was that he couldn't do it all the time, that he was only able to function well for a few hours in the day, that he would have moments of forgetfulness, that he would... There's actually an excerpt in the book where it says he forgot your name in December 2022. He called you Steve a couple of times. Did that happen?
I do not recall that ever happening, and I will tell you, Joe Biden knows my name. He knows my name like I talk to him even now, so I was surprised to read that in the book. But what I will more generally say is I had to wake the president up in the middle of the night when there were crises. I had to go into him at various points when unexpected things happen, and surely plenty of unexpected things happened during the time that he was in office and that I was in the seat. I did that over the course of the 4 years, and I saw him operating, decision-making executing as commander-in-chief throughout that time.
You never witnessed this thing that all these aides are talking about to these journalists, that sometimes he would just sort of fade away. You never witnessed that.
I could just tell you my own personal experience. I cannot speak on behalf of aides, unnamed people, and I can't speak on behalf of what folks reacted to when they saw him operating in public. All I can do is tell you my experience with him, and that's what I've done.
Yeah, right. Sure. Yeah, you're just still trying to hold on to the mantle that, you know what, maybe he is the one that operated the auto pen. That's possible. Well, anyway, something happened yesterday, and I kind of knew that I had a feeling that it would. I sort of knew that it would, but it's kind of interesting to see, especially some of the people that are, talking about this as though this is like a brand new revelation. We pretty much already knew this, folks, but the Her tapes were kicked out, and there's a released recordings that show Joe Biden, or, well, listen to Joe Biden, in terms of how he reacted to certain things and certain questions. Now, this particular interaction is a little long. It's about 4 minutes, a little over 4 minutes long. And I may not play it in its entirety, but it definitely goes toward the problem that you have with Joe Biden, which, by the way, was exhibited on The View during his interview by those sycophantic cackling witches over there on The View. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a listen here. So this is an audio only of Joe Biden during his conversation, and in this particular clip, this has everything to do with his remembering dates with regards to Beau's death. And this was one of the key indicators within Her's report, where he made the decision to not prosecute him because he would have just been, according to her, presenting himself to a jury as an elderly, well-meaning man with poor memory. So here, we'll take a listen.
So during this time, we were living in Chambers Road, and there were documents related to the Penn Biden Center, or the Biden, or the cancer shot, or your book. Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president.
Okay, so I just got to point this out, all right? Joe Biden had 2 other attempts at president prior to his run in 2020, okay? Those 2 other attempts at president, one of them ended in abject failure when the press did their actual job and called him out for plagiarizing and basically lying not only about his grades, but also about his accomplishments. And so, yeah. Anyway, the point being here, let me just go ahead and continue with this in terms of the clip so you can listen. But you can hear he's already kind of not answering the question. He's already kind of like skirting the question.
I'm not a mean thing to say. I mean, he just thought that she had a better shot of winning the presidency than I did. And so I hadn't at this point, even though I'm at Penn, I hadn't walked away from the idea that I might run for office again. So if I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening though, what month did Bo die? May 30th, 2018. Was it 2015 he had died? 2015. I think it's 2015.
I'm not sure the months are, but I think that was.
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. President.
And what's happened in the meantime is that Trump gets elected in November of 2017? 2016. All right. So, why do I have 2017 here?
That's when you left office, January of 2017.
Okay. But that's when Trump gets sworn in. Then,
right.
January.
Right. Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Correct. And in 2017, Bo had passed, and this is personal. The genesis of the book and the title, Promise Me Dad, was I know you're all close with your sons and daughters, but Bo was like my right arm, and that was my left. These guys were a year and a day apart, and they could finish each other's sentences.
All right. Well, I'm not going to continue that just because of the fact that it's, I mean, you get the point. You get the obvious point. It's sad. Okay. He lost his son. It's sad. But the reality of it is that he doesn't even remember like when he got elected. He was elected, or, you know, that when Donald Trump was elected, when he ended up going out of office, when he was doing, I mean, I just, it's sad that this guy is in the condition that he is. But the problem is that they allowed him to stay in the office when he was clearly not up to the job. He was clearly not up to the job. And I you know, there are a lot of people who are saying this, and I kind of agree with this. The whole Biden story, whether you look at, you know, Biden as the demented, lost, you know, old elderly man with a good heart or whatever in office, or you look at Biden, the influence peddling ringleader, or, you know, any of that, the Bidens are worse than the whole Watergate thing. They are worse than the entire situation with Nixon and Watergate. They're worse than that. The Biden family has so many freaking skeletons in their closet that they're trying so hard to cover up everything. This is a scandal. I mean, we basically had, now, don't get me wrong, when Woodrow Wilson had his, I think it was a stroke or something like that, and his wife actually ran the White House and ran the country for a period of time while Wilson recovered. And eventually, I think if I recall history correctly, he eventually came back and was able to actually finish out his term. But this is kind of along those same lines. I mean, this is a man who basically held the nuclear codes and couldn't even remember the date of his son's death, which to me would be an incredibly important date to remember. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't understand why they didn't, why the left and all of that, why they did not just, you know, say, hey, you know what? It's time for you to go. And Now he's going to have to deal with this. So this is going to be interesting to watch over time in terms of what happens. But that was just one of several things that came out in terms of the Her tapes. But that was the most important one because of the fact that they were focused in on that when Her produced his report. Speaking of the media, Katie Couric pops out and I guess was on her Thursday podcast called Next Question. She basically made the comment that people, presumably conservatives, who complain about media bias are just lamenting the existence of facts. Katie, I would love to see anyone on MSNBC, realistically, or anyone on CNN, although that's maybe changing, I don't know, who could actually like regurgitate a real fact that is counterintuitive to the narrative of the left. There hasn't been one in I don't know how many years since the mainstream media has started to be the sycophantic propaganda arm, of the DNC. So she was apparently talking about this. Sorry, I got lost where I was at. She was apparently nominated for a Weeby Award or Webby Award. She basically is making the assertion that she says, and of course, I think there's no such thing as true objectivity. But having said that, I really struggle with that. And many people say, listen, the rules have changed. It's okay to say you support trans people. It's okay to say that you are 100% for reproductive rights, and all these things that honestly, as personally as I hold dear, but professionally, I've been trained to not share that. Yeah, she seems to think the truth literally doesn't exist. That nobody can be actually truly objective with regards to this. She's claiming, of course, that media bias, the people who allege media bias, are saying it because they hate facts. And again, like I said, I would love for anybody to sit there and show me any kind of clips or anything else where CNN, MSNBC, NBC, especially back in the day when people were questioning, for an example, Joe Biden's cognitive ability of whether or not they would actually tell the truth, which is, well, I have seen some of this, but I still think he's capable of doing the job. No, they're like running like sycophantic Kool-Aid drinkers and trying to cover up for the man. And they did. Until now, where Jake Tapper actually produced a book with some assistance that basically provides him some money because people are going to be buying that thing just to see what happens to be inside it. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, don't forget, it's Armed Forces Day, so if you haven't already, remind somebody, if you know somebody who is currently in the services, remind somebody that we respect and honor them for doing what is often a thankless job, and for putting their lives on the line for all of us here in America. We will see you Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Don't forget, if you are up, take a listen to Bourbon and Backroads, midnight Central Time. It's 10 p.m. Pacific Coast Time, but midnight tonight, midnight Central to 2 a.m. Central here on True Grit Roots Network, TGRN's Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. And you can check that out. Like I said, we will see you tomorrow. We will see you Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your weekend, and good night, everybody.